I'm 40 years old, a single mom trying to hold life together with coffee, work emails, and a teenage daughter who thinks I know nothing about her world. Her name's Lily, 15. Bright, funny, glued to her phone like it's an oxygen tank. I used to think it was harmless. Every giggle, every quick swipe when I walked into the room, I told myself, she's just growing up, probably texting a boy. But mothers know when something's off. It started with the way she'd blush at her screen, then suddenly turn it face down. The way she'd stay up late, whispering into her phone under the covers. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I picked it up while she slept. And that's when I realized the person she'd been talking to wasn't a boy from school. It was my ex-husband, using a fake account. I'm 40 years old. And if you asked me to describe my life in one word, I'd probably say quiet. Not peaceful, not calm, just quiet, in the way empty houses are quiet after everyone's gone. 5 years ago, I would have told you something different. Back then, I had a husband, a home that always smelled like cinnamon candles, and a little girl who thought I was the entire universe. Her name's Lily. She was 10 then, still losing baby teeth, still crawling into my bed when thunderstorms scared her. And then the storm hit for real, only it wasn't thunder, it was divorce. When I met Daniel, he was the kind of man who filled up every room he walked into. Charismatic, the word people used. He could talk anyone into anything, a waiter, a boss, even me. Especially me. I was 25. Working double shifts at a diner, studying at night, and he made me feel like I was finally being seen. He'd sit at the counter for hours, nursing a coffee he didn't even like, just to keep me company. He remembered every detail I told him, my favorite color, my sister's birthday, the exact song playing the night my dad died. It sounds romantic now, but back then, it was intoxicating. I mistook attention for love, persistence for devotion. We got married fast, too fast, and I told myself it was passion. I told myself every couple fought. I told myself that love meant forgiveness, even when forgiveness felt like surrender. For a while, things were good. Daniel had a decent job in marketing, and I finally finished my degree. We bought a little 2-bedroom house in the suburbs, the kind with a tiny backyard and a mailbox that leaned slightly to the left. I painted Lily's room yellow because she said it looked like sunshine, but little cracks began to show. It started small, him checking my phone, asking who texted me, insisting he just worried. Then came the comments, how I talked too much to male coworkers, how I didn't need friends who were bad influences. By the time Lily turned 8, I was a ghost of myself. I'd stopped wearing makeup because he said I looked fake. I'd stopped visiting my mother because he said she filled my head with nonsense. The day I realized I had to leave wasn't a big fight. It was a quiet afternoon. I was washing dishes, and Lily was coloring at the table. Daniel was in the living room, yelling on the phone with someone from work. He threw the remote against the wall. It shattered, plastic pieces skidding across the floor. Lily flinched, not cried, not screamed, just flinched, like she was used to it. That moment broke me. I remember turning off the faucet, drying my hands, and thinking, if I stay, she'll learn that this is what love looks like. And I couldn't let that happen. So I packed what I could fit in 2 suitcases, grabbed Lily's hand, and left. No plan, just gone. The first year after the divorce was survival mode. I worked 2 jobs, admin assistant by day, cashier by night. I rented a small apartment over a bakery, the kind where the smell of fresh bread drifted up every morning. Lily and I shared everything. Our meals, our jokes, our fears. She'd sleep beside me sometimes, and I'd feel her little hand curl around mine in the dark. She was the reason I kept going. Daniel called it first, Too much, too often. He wanted to talk to Lily, but mostly he wanted to talk to me. Guilt trips, apologies, threats, promises. He'd switch tones like flipping a switch. When I finally blocked his number, he started emailing, then messaging through mutual friends. I filed for a restraining order. He violated it twice before finally backing off. Or so I thought. By the time Lily hit her teenage years, I thought we were safe. She was 15 now, funny, bright, obsessed with her phone like every other teenager. We'd built a good life, quiet but steady. I worked from home now as a bookkeeper for a small company. Our apartment was small but cozy soft lights, a bookshelf full of novels, and a fridge covered in her drawings. Still, there were moments I caught myself looking over my shoulder. Trauma does that, it hides in your spine, waiting for footsteps that might never come. Lily didn't remember much about her father. I never badmouthed him, just told her he wasn't well, that he needed time to work on himself. I thought that was enough. I thought protecting her meant silence. But silence can be dangerous too. It started with laughter. I'd hear it from her room late at night, a quiet giggle, the kind she hadn't made since she was little. I'd peek in sometimes, just to check. She'd be lying on her bed, phone inches from her face, cheeks pink. When I asked who she was talking to, she'd shrug. Just a friend. Teenage girls have secrets. I remembered that. So I let it go. But soon she was glued to that phone every second at dinner, in the car, even during homework. I'd see her smiling at messages, then quickly flipping the screen when I passed by. I told myself it was harmless. Probably a boy. Maybe her first crush. I tried to be the cool mom, to respect her privacy. Then one night, I walked into her room to say goodnight, and she jumped like she'd been caught stealing. She pressed the phone to her chest, eyes wide. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Nothing, Mom. Just texting." I laughed it off, but something inside me twisted. That same old instinct I'd ignored for years, the one that whispered, "Something's wrong." A week later, I noticed she'd changed her password. She'd never done that before. I asked, "Why'd you lock your phone?" She said, "Everyone does it, Mom. Don't make it weird." And maybe she was right. Maybe I was overreacting. Except her behavior changed too. She started staying up later, snapping at me for little things, hiding her screen whenever I came near. One evening, I came home early from work. She didn't hear me come in. I stopped outside her door and heard her whispering. Not just whispering, pleading. "Please don't be mad. I just can't talk right now. Mom's here." Something in me froze. When I opened the door, she gasped, scrambling to lock her phone. Her face was pale. "Who are you talking to?" "No one." Her voice cracked. And that was it, the moment every mother dreads, when you realize your child is keeping something dangerous from you. That night, after she fell asleep, I stood by her bed, watching her breathe like I used to when she was a baby. Her phone lay on the nightstand, screen face down, a small pulse of light flickering from a new message. I told myself I'd just look once, just to be sure she was safe. I picked it up, heart pounding. And that's when everything started to unravel. When I picked up Lily's phone that night, my hands were shaking so badly I could hardly keep the screen steady. It was locked, but she'd used the same password for months her birthday. I typed it in, and the screen opened without hesitation. That small, simple sound of the phone unlocking felt louder than thunder. I wasn't ready for what I saw. Her messages were endless, a thread that stretched back weeks, full of heart emojis, late-night confessions, and the kind of laughter only teenagers know. The contact name read Tyler. My stomach dropped. I didn't know any Tyler. Neither did she, as far as I was aware. The first messages were innocent enough. "Hey, saw your post. You're funny. Thanks, lol. Who is this? Just someone who gets what it's like to be misunderstood. The tone was light, almost sweet. But as I scrolled, the words changed. They grew more personal, more intimate. He told her she was special, that she was different from other girls. He asked her about her friends, her schedule, the things she did after school. At first, she seemed shy, careful with what she shared. But as days went on, her replies softened. Trust grew where there should have been caution. He told her he was 16, homeschooled, living nearby. He said he didn't have many friends, that people didn't get him. He said she was the only person who listened. I read every word like a wound. Then came a line that made my heart stop. You remind me of your mom. She must be really smart. My blood ran cold. What teenage boy talks like that? What 16-year-old compliments a girl's mother that way? I scrolled faster, my pulse hammering. He asked questions about me. What time I worked, what kind of car I drove, if I ever brought people home. My breath caught. Then another message. She must be so strong after everything she went through with your dad. My vision blurred. I sat on the edge of Lily's bed, staring at those words until they burned into my mind. I hadn't told anyone about my marriage in detail. Not my coworkers, not my neighbors, not even Lily's school counselor. There was no way this Tyler could know. Unless he wasn't Tyler. Unless he was someone who already knew every piece of my past. I felt something deep inside me twist into panic. I opened the photos next, hands trembling. There were pictures of Lily smiling selfies, mirror shots, little glimpses of her day. But mixed between them were screenshots, old photos, ones I hadn't seen in years. A picture of our old house, a photo of Lily at the park taken from a distance, and one of me at the grocery store holding a basket. I hadn't taken it. I felt sick. The messages got worse. He started calling her sweetheart, telling her he missed her when she didn't reply fast enough. He said things like, I wish I could protect you from people who don't understand us. My heart broke for her and burned with fury at the same time. The last message sent that night read, You're lucky your mom's asleep. Now you can finally talk to me. I dropped the phone on the bed like it had burned me. I could barely breathe. Every nerve in my body screamed to wake her up, to confront her, to scream, Who is this? But I didn't. Not yet. I needed to be sure. The next day, while she was at school, I took screenshots of the entire conversation and sent them to myself. Then I called an old friend, Sarah, who worked in IT. I told her it was about a weird message thread Lily had gotten and that I needed to trace a number. She hesitated at first, said it might not be possible. But when I sent her the screenshots, she called back within an hour. Her voice was quiet. Where did you say this guy lives? He says he's local. 16. There was a pause. Yeah, that's not a kid, hun. The number's registered under a different name. Who? I asked. When she said the name, I felt the air leave my lungs. Daniel, my ex-husband. For a second, I thought she was wrong. It didn't make sense. He hadn't contacted us in years. He didn't even have our new address, as far as I knew. But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. The familiarity in his tone. The way he knew just what to say to make Lily trust him. He was doing to her what he used to do to me, mirroring her feelings, feeding her loneliness, twisting it into connection. I sat there on the floor of my kitchen, staring at the phone, shaking so hard I dropped it twice. The rage came slow at first, then all at once. The kind of rage that burns clean, like ice. I wanted to drive to his house, scream in his face, tear him apart for what he'd done. But then another thought cut through the noise. Lily doesn't know. She thought she was talking to a boy her age. She thought it was safe. She thought this was what first love looked like. And the person behind those messages, the one she trusted with her secrets, was the same man who'd once made me afraid to speak. That night, I sat by her door, listening to her laugh again. It was the same sound I'd heard before, only now it felt wrong, hollow. Every giggle was a reminder of his manipulation, his reach, his sickness. He hadn't let us go. He'd just found a new way to get in. I wanted to burst in, tell her everything, delete the account, call the police, but I needed proof enough to make sure he couldn't talk his way out of it like he used to. Enough to make the law listen this time. So I played along. I created a fake account of my own, pretending to be Lily. I copied her profile picture, her slang, her emojis. When he texted that night, I replied. He didn't even notice the difference. His words came fast, like he'd been waiting all day. He told Lily he wished he could see her in person, that he'd drive by her street sometimes just to feel closer, that he'd seen her mother at the grocery store, and that she looked as beautiful as ever. I felt the blood drain from my face. He was watching us. Every window suddenly felt too open. Every shadow outside too long. I closed the curtains, locked the doors, and sat in the dark, gripping my phone like a weapon. He sent another message. You don't have to be afraid of me. I'll always be here. You and your mom are my family, no matter what she says. I stared at the words until they blurred. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I typed back, "You're sick." He replied instantly, "I'm your father. You'll understand someday." And that was it. The truth I'd been dreading, laid bare in one line. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there in silence. The kind of silence that feels like falling. Because somehow, after all these years, he had found a way back into our lives through the one person I'd tried hardest to protect. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by Lily's door again, listening to her breathe, promising myself that he would never get near her again. Not in person, not online, not ever. But promises like that are easier to make than to keep. Because when you're dealing with someone who knows how to hide behind screens, behind lies, behind love, nothing stays hidden for long. The next morning felt unreal. I went through the motions of breakfast, pouring cereal, making coffee, pretending everything was normal, while my hands trembled so badly I spilled half the milk on the counter. Lily didn't notice. She was too busy scrolling through her phone, smiling at the screen like nothing in the world could go wrong. I wanted to grab it from her hands, to scream, "That's not who you think it is." But the words caught in my throat. I couldn't just tell her the truth. She was 15. How do you explain to your daughter that her father, the man she barely remembers, is the stranger in her phone pretending to be someone else? She looked at me across the table and said, "You okay, Mom? You look pale." "I'm fine." I lied. "You sure?" "Yeah, just didn't sleep well." It was the truth, in a way. I hadn't slept at all. I'd spent the whole night staring at my phone, rereading those messages, feeling each one cut deeper. I'd always thought fear and anger were opposites, but that morning I felt both at once. Fear for her, rage for him, and underneath it all, a thin layer of guilt that made it hard to breathe. I should have seen this coming. I should have done more to protect her. I was the adult, the one who was supposed to know how monsters operate. I'd lived with one for years, but I'd convinced myself he was gone. And now, my daughter was talking to him every day, trusting him, confiding in him. That thought made me sick. When Lily left for school, I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee growing cold, trying to decide what to do. Every option felt like a trap. If I told her outright, She might not believe me. She'd think I was overreacting, invading her privacy, ruining her life. Teenagers protect their secrets like armor, especially when they think you're trying to take away something they love. But if I said nothing, he'd keep manipulating her. He'd twist her mind until she turned against me completely. I'd seen him do it before to me. There were moments from our marriage that came back to me like flashes. The way he'd whisper apologies right after screaming in my face. The way he'd convince me I was the one who'd made him angry. He had this gift or curse of making people question their own reality. Now he was doing it again. To his own daughter. By afternoon, I had a plan. Not a good one, but something. I'd keep pretending to be Lily on my fake account to draw him out. Meanwhile, I'd gather proof enough to go to the police and make them listen this time. Because last time, when I filed that restraining order, they said they couldn't do much unless he posed a direct threat. And crew fouls. What's more direct than catfishing your own child? Still, part of me knew the system didn't always work in favor of women like me. Daniel was charming, articulate, persuasive. He knew how to sound reasonable, how to twist the truth just enough to make me look paranoid. So I documented everything. Every message, every timestamp, every screenshot. I created a folder on my laptop labeled Receipts. I told no one except Sarah, who helped me trace the number again to make sure it hadn't been rerouted. It hadn't. It was him. Days passed. I acted normal around Lily, but inside I was falling apart. Every time she smiled at her phone, I felt a stab of panic. I wanted to snatch it away, to tell her everything, to lock the door and never let anyone near her again. But I played the long game. One evening, she came into my room, her face glowing in the light of her phone. "Mom, you won't believe what Tyler said." I froze. "What's that?" "He said he wants to meet. Isn't that crazy?" She laughed nervously, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "He said maybe we could hang out at the mall." I told him I'd think about it. I forced my voice to stay calm. "You don't even know him, honey." She rolled her eyes. "We've been talking for weeks. He's not a stranger. He's online, Lily. You don't really know who people are online." "Mom, please, you don't understand. He's different." The words hit like a punch to the chest. He's different. That's exactly what I used to say about Daniel when people tried to warn me. I wanted to scream, but instead I said softly, "Promise me you won't meet him." She looked at me, her teenage defiance slipping just a little. "Why? Do you think I'm stupid?" "No," I said quickly. "I think you're smart. I've seen things you haven't." She sighed, shrugged, and said, "Fine, I won't meet him." Yet, that last word stuck in my head all night. Yet, I checked my fake account again before bed. Sure enough, he'd messaged, "Lily, you're quiet tonight. Your mom giving you a hard time?" I typed, "She doesn't understand me." He replied, "She never did. She never understood me either." My hands froze on the keyboard. That was Daniel's voice. The same rhythm, the same manipulation, the same way of turning sympathy into control. I wanted to throw my phone across the room, but I forced myself to keep playing along. I asked him what he meant. He replied, "We were meant to be a family. She ruined everything, but we can fix that." The next morning, I called the police. I didn't tell Lily. I just explained what was happening. That my ex-husband was impersonating a teenager to contact our daughter. They told me to come in and file a formal report. I brought the screenshots, the trace number, everything. The officer, a woman in her 50s, listened quietly. She didn't look shocked, just tired, like she'd seen too many stories like mine. She said she'd escalate it, maybe even involve cybercrime. But she also warned me, until he makes a direct threat or tries to meet her, it's hard to prosecute. I asked, so I have to wait until he tries to get near her? She hesitated. That would make it easier to prove intent. Easier to prove intent. Those words echoed in my head all the way home. That night, Lily came to me again, eyes bright. Tyler said he wants to surprise me with something. My heart stopped. What kind of surprise? I don't know. He said I'd find out soon. I smiled, pretending not to panic. That's nice. As soon as she went to bed, I messaged him from my fake account. What kind of surprise? He replied instantly. You'll see. I'm going to make everything right again. I promise. The next day, I noticed a black car parked across the street from our apartment. I told myself it was nothing, just a neighbor's guest. A delivery, anything but him. But the car was there the next day, too, and the next. I started keeping the curtains drawn, double-checking the locks every night. Lily thought I was being paranoid. Maybe I was. But I couldn't shake the feeling that he was close. Watching, waiting. I caught myself staring at Lily sometimes, memorizing the shape of her face, the way her hair fell across her eyes, because part of me was terrified that one day she might just disappear. I didn't tell her that, of course. I just smiled and asked about school, about her friends, about anything that wasn't him. But every time she mentioned Tyler, my stomach turned to stone. I'd left Daniel to protect her. I'd built an entire life around keeping her safe. And now, despite everything, he'd found his way back through the one thing I couldn't control, a screen. Some nights I sat in the dark, scrolling through our old photos. Lily as a baby, Daniel holding her, smiling for the camera. I used to believe those smiles were real. Now they looked like warnings. I promised myself I'd stop him before he hurt her, no matter what it took, because a mother's love is fierce, but fear is stronger. And mine was turning into something else entirely, something sharp, something that wanted justice more than peace. I didn't know it yet, but the next message he sent would change everything. The message came late. I was half asleep on the couch, the TV murmuring in the background, when my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with his words. Tomorrow's the day. I can't wait to see you, sweetheart. My stomach flipped. I typed back quickly, still pretending to be Lily. What are you talking about? He sent a photo. A parking lot. The one behind the mall near our house. I'll be waiting here after school. Don't tell your mom. She'll ruin it. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The reality hit all at once. This wasn't just some sick game online anymore. He wanted to meet her. He was planning it. I stared at the photo. Every detail burned into my mind. The cracked asphalt, the half-broken light post. I knew that lot. It was the same place where Daniel and I used to argue in his car when we were first married. It was his pattern, always turning memories into traps. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark, replaying every possible scenario in my head. What if I went instead of her? What if I told the police to meet me there? What if he figured it out and disappeared before they came? Morning came like a bad dream you can't wake from. Lily was her usual self, humming while brushing her hair, teasing me about being overprotective. She had no idea. No clue that the person she thought she was falling for was the same man who used to shout at me until the walls shook. When she grabbed her backpack, I forced a smile and said, "I'll drive you today." She frowned. "Mom, you never drive me to school anymore. I just feel like it." She shrugged. Okay. The drive was quiet. My hands were tight on the wheel, heart thudding against my ribs. When we pulled up in front of the school, she kissed my cheek and said, "Love you, Mom," before disappearing into the crowd. I parked down the street, waited until she was inside, then dialed the police station. My voice was steady, even though my body felt like it was unraveling. I told them everything about the messages, the meeting place, the photo. The officer on the other end told me to stay calm and not confront him directly. They'd send a plainclothes unit to the mall and monitor from a distance. But waiting wasn't something I was good at. By 3 o'clock, I was already parked near the lot. The sky was gray, the air thick with the kind of stillness that makes you nervous for no reason. I kept checking my rearview mirror, scanning every car that passed. Then I saw him. He looked almost the same. A little older, a little thinner, but the same controlled confidence in the way he moved. He got out of his car, a black sedan, and leaned against it, checking his phone. I gripped my steering wheel so hard my fingers hurt. Seeing him again after all these years sent 1,000 memories flooding back. His voice in my head, his hands slamming the counter, his eyes when he said I'd never survive without him. The police hadn't arrived yet, and then my phone buzzed again. A message from him thinking I was Lily. "I'm here. Where are you?" I typed back, "Almost there." I got out of my car before I could stop myself. I wasn't thinking about the police anymore, or safety, or logic. I was thinking about my daughter. About what could have happened if she'd come instead of me. He didn't see me at first. I walked straight toward him, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. When he finally looked up, the smirk on his face froze. For a split second, neither of us spoke. Then he said quietly, "You shouldn't be here." "Neither should you," I shot back. He glanced around, probably realizing his plan had crumbled. "You don't understand. I just wanted to see her. She's my daughter." "You were pretending to be a teenager." My voice cracked. "You lied to her. You made her trust you." He shook his head like I was the crazy one. "I just wanted to talk to her. You kept her from me. You had your chance, Daniel. You ruined it." He took a step forward. I took one back. "You poisoned her against me," he said, his voice rising, the same edge I remembered too well. "You made her think I was a monster." I stared at him, tears burning my eyes. "You didn't need my help for that." For a moment, his face twisted into something dark. Then he smiled a slow, chilling smile. "She loves me, you know." She said it. I froze. "She doesn't even know who you are," I whispered. "She will," he said. "She'll understand why I had to do it." He reached into his jacket pocket, and for one terrifying second I thought he had a weapon. I took a step back, heart racing. Then I saw the glint of his phone. He held it up, showing me our messages. "You think you're clever, pretending to be her? You think I didn't notice?" The blood drained from my face. He laughed softly. "You've always underestimated me, Claire." Hearing my name in his mouth again made my skin crawl. Before I could respond, 2 unmarked police cars pulled into the lot. Doors opened. Officers stepped out. Daniel's expression changed from smug to panicked in an instant. They surrounded him quickly, one of them calling out his name. He tried to protest, shouting that I'd set him up, that it was all a misunderstanding. But the officers didn't listen. They cuffed him right there, his voice echoing off the pavement. I just stood there, watching the man who had haunted my life finally lose control. As they led him to the car, he turned his head toward me and said, "You can't keep her from me forever." His words were calm, almost gentle. That scared me more than the shouting ever did. When he was gone, one of the officers approached me. She asked if I was okay. I nodded, but my body was shaking so hard I couldn't speak. She told me they'd file charges: impersonation, online harassment, violation of the restraining order. I sat in my car afterward, hands gripping the wheel, staring at nothing. I should have felt relief, but all I felt was emptiness. When I got home, Lily was on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up and smiled. "Hey, Mom, how was work?" I stood there in the doorway, staring at her, this girl who still believed the world was safe. I didn't know how to tell her what had happened. I didn't know if I should. "Mom," she said softly. I sat down beside her. "There's something we need to talk about." She frowned. "What's wrong?" I took her hand, my throat tight. "That boy you've been talking to online, he wasn't who you thought he was." Her face went pale. "What do you mean?" "It was your father." For a moment, she just stared at me, blinking like she couldn't process the words. Then she shook her head. No, that's not possible. He wouldn't." "I'm sorry," I whispered. "But it's true. He was arrested today." Her breath hitched, and for a long time neither of us spoke. She just stared at the floor, eyes glassy, her hands shaking. When she finally looked up, tears streamed down her face. Why would he do that? I didn't have an answer. I just pulled her into my arms and held her while she cried, whispering that she was safe now, that it was over. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. People like Daniel don't stop easily. Even behind bars, their words linger like smoke. That night, when Lily finally fell asleep, I sat by her bed again, the same way I had the night I discovered everything. Only this time, the fear felt different. It wasn't just fear of him. It was fear of what he'd left behind. The doubt, the cracks, the questions in my daughter's heart. How do you tell a child that the person who hurt you both is still part of her? How do you teach her to trust again when her first lesson in love was a lie? I didn't know, but I knew one thing. I'd do whatever it took to help her heal, even if it meant facing every shadow he'd ever cast. And as I sat there in the dark, listening to her breathe, I made another silent promise, one that I wouldn't break this time. He might have found us once, but he would never touch her again. It's strange how quiet the world becomes after chaos. The week after Daniel's arrest felt like walking through the wreckage of a storm that had finally stopped. Everything looked the same. The same house, the same furniture, the same routine, but nothing felt normal anymore. Lily barely spoke. She'd wake up, get dressed, go to school, come home, and retreat to her room. I didn't push her. I knew what silence meant. It was the same silence I'd lived in years ago, the kind that hides confusion, shame, betrayal. I spent most of those days pacing. The apartment felt too small, like the walls were pressing in. Every time my phone buzzed, my body tensed. Even though I knew he was gone, some part of me couldn't shake the habit of expecting him to appear again in a message, in a dream, in a reflection outside the window. But he didn't. The calls from the police came instead. They told me he'd been charged with multiple offenses: cyber harassment, impersonation, violating a restraining order. They had enough evidence to hold him, at least for now. I should have felt victorious, but I didn't. There was no sense of triumph, only exhaustion. Because when someone like him worms their way into your life, they don't just hurt you once. They plant roots. You can cut them down, but the pieces stay inside you. A few days later, I found Lily sitting on the edge of her bed, staring at her phone. She wasn't crying, not really, but her eyes looked hollow. I sat beside her quietly. "You can talk to me, you know?" She didn't look up. "I don't know what to say." "Say anything." She hesitated. "I feel stupid." "You're not." "I trusted him," she said, voice shaking. "I told him things, Mom, personal things. I told him about school, my friends, even you. I said I thought you were too strict. He said he understood me, and it felt good. It felt like someone was finally listening." My throat tightened. "That's not your fault, Lily." He knew exactly what to say. "That's what people like him do. They make you feel seen so they can use it against you. Her lip trembled. But he was my dad. Why would he do that? I wished I had an answer that made sense. Because some people mistake control for love, I said softly. They think if they can't have power over you, they've lost you. He couldn't stand losing us. She looked down at her hands. I hate him. I know. I took a deep breath. You're allowed to. We sat there for a long time, the silence stretching between us. Then she leaned into me, resting her head on my shoulder, and for the first time in weeks, I felt her body relax. I wrapped my arm around her, holding her the way I used to when she was small, before the world got complicated. That night, I made her hot chocolate, and we watched old home videos, the ones from before everything fell apart. There was one clip of her at 4 years old, covered in cake frosting, giggling into the camera. Daniel's voice could be heard behind it, gentle, cheerful, like any ordinary father. I saw Lily's face twist in pain when she heard it, so I stopped the video. Maybe we shouldn't watch that one, I said quietly. She nodded. I don't want to forget who he was, she said, but I also don't want to remember him like that. I understand. In the weeks that followed, things started to change slowly. She agreed to see a therapist, someone who specialized in trauma recovery. I went too. At first, it felt awkward, sitting across from a stranger and unpacking years of fear. But it helped. It helped to name the things that had lived unnamed inside me for so long. We began rebuilding. Small steps. Dinners together again. Walks in the evening. We laughed sometimes, even if it felt fragile at first. There were still hard days, the nightmares, the sudden bursts of anger, the questions I couldn't answer, but we faced them together. One night, about a month after everything, Lily came into the living room holding her phone. My stomach tightened instinctively, but she smiled. I deleted all my social apps, she said. I looked up. You sure? Yeah. I just need a break from all of it. I nodded. That's probably a good idea. She hesitated. I'm sorry for lying to you. About the messages. About everything. I reached for her hand. Don't apologize, sweetheart. I'm just glad you're safe. She squeezed my fingers. You're not mad? I was scared, I said. But never mad. You're my daughter. I'd walk through fire for you. For the first time in a long while, she smiled, really smiled. That night, after she went to bed, I sat on the porch with a blanket around my shoulders. The air was cool, the street quiet. I looked up at the window of her room, where the soft glow of her lamp still shone. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something like peace. Not the naive kind I used to crave, the one that pretends bad things can't happen. This was a different peace, the kind that comes from surviving, from knowing the darkness, naming it, and choosing to keep living anyway. I thought about Daniel sometimes, not because I missed him, but because I couldn't help wondering what he was telling himself in whatever cell or facility he ended up in. Did he believe he was the victim? Did he convince himself it was love? Maybe. But it didn't matter anymore. His story wasn't mine to carry. Before going back inside, I whispered a promise to the night. Not to him, but to myself. I promised to keep the doors locked, but not my heart. To teach Lily that fear doesn't get the last word. To remind myself that strength isn't about being unbroken, it's about standing up. Again and again, no matter how many times you fall. The next morning, she came out of her room, hair messy, still half asleep, and said, Mom, can we go somewhere this weekend? Just us? Where? I don't know. Somewhere quiet. Maybe the beach? I smiled. Yeah, I think we could use that. We packed a small bag and drove to the coast that Saturday. The air smelled like salt and freedom. She ran ahead of me toward the water, barefoot, laughing, really laughing, and I watched her, feeling tears sting my eyes. The wind tangled her hair. The sun hit her face. And for a moment I saw the little girl she used to be and the strong young woman she was becoming, both living in the same heartbeat. She turned and waved. "Come on, Mom." And I went. I ran after her, letting the ocean swallow our footprints, letting the sound of her laughter wash away what was left of the fear. Maybe the scars would always be there for both of us, but scars mean healing. They mean survival. And as we stood there together, waves crashing around our feet, I realized something. I used to think the monster was behind me. Turns out, he just found Wi-Fi. But even monsters can't survive sunlight. And the sun was finally ours again.